Good morning. Back to school for me in a minute. First day back at college. Quite excited, quite nervous. How am I going to fit it all in with everything? But 2 more years to go. So looking at the political spectrum today, and it's a really bleak day. And we can't not talk about Charlie Kirk. But I will keep it brief because it's impossible to make head nor tail of it other than the fact that he was shot. And talking to my son in the car on the way to the gym this morning, and he talked about America's gun laws and our gun laws, and I told him what I was scared of as a parent and what my fears are as he grows up and as my daughter grows up. And I think the overarching feeling that we both had was a sense of out of control in the world at the minute. And so we need to keep ourselves in control with what we can do and what we can respond to and how we can live our lives. But it is scary. It is really scary. So I am, my thoughts are with everybody that was involved in that yesterday. That must have just been horrific. And then we bring ourselves back over here and we've got the Peter Mandelson debacle, which, ever wages on. And it feels, I think my frustration with this is we're just not learning. We're simply not learning from one scandal to another. So we're fresh off the back of Angela Rayner, where everyone's talking about the tax dodge. And a lot of other people are saying that's not the issue here. The issue was that her house was massively overvalued. We will never know. It will just disappear into the past like everything else does because it's not front page news anymore. She's gone. She'll resurface at some point. I mean, look at Lucy Powell. You get sacked and then you go for deputy leader. It's not like she's going to be off the scene for long, is it? But something that interested me, which will interest you, I have no doubt. Kemi Badenoch demands the publication of all government vetting documents relating to Peter Mandelson. This is a man who has been sacked from government twice. Now we find out that he negotiated a £1 billion deal with Jeffrey Epstein. So much on that. This is a man who has been sacked from government twice. How many times are you sacked before you just can't come back? And again, we see it with Lucy Powell. We may see it with Angela Rayner. We've seen it with successive governments. You're sacked for something that's happened and then you come back. Now, of course, if you're sacked from one job, you are able to go and get another job. Being sacked from something doesn't mean that you can never work again. God. But if it's in government, when Kemi Badenoch is talking about this vetting process, would that not take into account the sackings, the integrity, the moral fibre of a person? And would that not shed some light on their potential? You do a risk analysis, don't you? You say, risk-wise, this person's quite high. And, I feel like there's a lot of people using Peter Mandelson as a scapegoat at the minute in government. But it's an interesting question that she poses. I'd like to see transparency on the vetting process for everyone in Parliament. Everyone. I would like to see what due diligence is done by anyone who is about to be or employing somebody in Parliament. I would like to see what due diligence is done with local MPs. I would like to see what due diligence is done for people who put themselves in a position of authority in government. Because if we are going to have these standards that appear to be so high, yet nobody can actually attain them, what's the point? If we're not making sure that the candidates coming through can reach them and are suitable. And the public is fed up of more skeletons coming out of the closets. The public is fed up with a lack of scrutiny internally between the parties of who is standing there and telling us and making legislation and making policies and manifestos and mandates that affect our lives. And yet we find out a few months later that they did something which shows them to be double standards, hypocritical, low on moral integrity, low on moral fibre, corrupt, you name it. It all swirls around all of the political parties. And again, this is another area where I think at the minute, and Kemi Badenoch will not win in the opinion polls for this because she's been written off, and it's actually a shame, because the more I'm seeing of her and the more I'm hearing of what she's saying, this does strike me as the one person at the minute, well, one of the few people at the minute, who do have a genuine desire to do right by us. But of course, that's perceived to be a bit boring, isn't it? But she's coming out of the woodwork. She's coming out of the shadows as somebody who has got moral integrity. And, Farage and his Clacton homes, and everybody's so busy on the defensive. And what's the phrase? Seek forgiveness, not permission. That's how it feels at the minute. We've got a lot of people asking for our forgiveness. It's like, well, when do we draw the line and say, just don't do it in the first place? Just simply don't do it. And if you want to do that in the first place, don't be a politician. Because that's really where the line is drawn, isn't it? And I find it astounding that we do have all of these people that come into power, and then within sort of 3-4 weeks, something surfaces. Now, I feel sorry for a lot of them, because what surfaced is often used as a deflection against something that's even worse that's going on in the parties. And that's because politicians at the minute just play dirty all the time. There's no real clean fighting, apart from Kemi, who is beginning to instill that. I'd like to see more of it. I'd like to see Keir Starmer answer a question, but I'm amused at the amount of social media hours he takes up with his dodging of it and the memes that come out. There'll be a song about him soon as well. But yeah, I feel like the Mandelson thing, the Rayner thing, it's just a waste of our time. He'd been sacked twice and he's been found to have done this deal. He's just not fit for the job. Doesn't mean he can't do the job. Doesn't mean he's not actually got the skills to do it. Doesn't mean that he doesn't have the credentials, but his entire package isn't fit. There must be somebody else that is more fit for the job. Or we have to turn around and go, doesn't matter, we're not going to talk about that. That's not going to be a thing, because the credentials that he brings for the actual specification of the role are a match. So we have to get over anything else he does in his past and his private life. Well, it's not private life, is it? But anything else he does in his personal life, we have to get over, because on paper, he is the best person to be the ambassador. Which one is it? Pick a lane. But we can't have it both ways. And it feels like we want it both ways at the minute. And it feels like the British public have set their standards and they've been quite consistent with them. They've been quite clear. I mean, let's remember Boris and Partygate. It's not like these are new standards. It's not like we are holding people accountable for new things. The British people have been very consistent with what they will and won't accept. And if they're saying that Mandelson is wrong and that Rayner was wrong and it's not fair that you get to behave this way and yet we're held to account for so much, then politicians need to not only listen for these individual cases, they need to listen full stop. There is a code of conduct. I mean, we know there's a ministerial code of conduct, but we keep having these people that are being sacked for things that happened historically. Where does the code of conduct fit in then? It doesn't, does it? So it's a bit of a messy thought process this morning, but I need time to get my head around it all. But that's where I'm at. I feel like we need a reset button that's signed, that's pressed by all parties and upheld by all parties. And leaders have the absolute right to indeed have a much more robust vetting process. And the leaders need vetting. Let's be clear, it has to be one rule for everyone. And then we've got a level playing field to move forwards in. Just a thought.